Hello. So today let's read Unit 7, A Tribute to Netaji. In the history of India's freedom struggle, the place of Subhash Chandra Bose is unique. He was a leader who thought of fighting the brute force of British by armed force. He had a wonderful organizing capacity. He could raise a modern army of about 75,000 men and women. He inspired them with intense patriotic fervor and a burning desire to free their enslaved motherland. Subhash Chandra Bose belonged to an educated and prosperous family. He was educated in England, Cambridge, and had travelled widely all over Europe. He looked at India from an international perspective. As he had a deeply spiritual nature, his quest for truth and the right guru had taken him to each and every corner of the country. At last, he made up his mind to follow the teaching of Swami Vivekananda and Aurobindo Ghosh in the spiritual sphere and Deshbandhu Chittaranjan Das in politics. Subhash Chandra had a special regard for his Muslim countrymen. Some of his ancestors like Mahipati Bose and Gopalnath Bose had held the offices of minister and naval commanders under the Muslim rulers of Bengal. The quarters in which we lived, says Bose in his autobiography, was prominently a Muslim one and our neighbors were mostly Muslims. I cannot remember ever to have looked upon Muslims as different from ourselves in any way except that they go to pray in a mosque. Subhash was born at Cuttack, Odisha on January 23, 1897. His father, Janakinath Bose, was a famous lawyer. Bose was a brilliant student. He had very broad-minded views on freedom and other social issues, and his hungry soul was not satisfied with textbooks alone. Describing his childhood, he said, "In my infancy, I was brought into touch with English people, English education and English culture. After that, I went back to our culture, both classical and modern." Bose had a rebellious and independent spirit, and that was apparent from his earliest days. In the Presidency College, Calcutta, he organized a student strike to demonstrate against an English professor who had insultingly pushed away an Indian student. For this, Bose was expelled from the college. After a year, he was allowed to join the Scottish Church College in Calcutta, where he secured a first class in the BA examination. Subhash left for England on September 15, 1919, in order to study and appear at the Indian Civil Service ICS examination. After a year, he came out successfully and stood forth in the order of merit, but his conscience would not allow him to serve the alien rulers even as a high executive. So he resigned from the ICS and returned to India. Now, Bose wanted to chalk out the future course of his life. He had long discussions with Mahatma Gandhi and C.R. Das. He took Das as his mentor and settled down as principal of National College at Calcutta. But Bose gave up his job when Gandhiji started the non-cooperation movement. He was arrested by the British for joining the movement. After his release, Bose formed the Swaraj Party and was appointed the editor of the party's journal Forward. Bose became the executive officer of the Calcutta Corporation in 1924 and gained valuable experience of planning and practical administration. Soon, the activities of the Swaraj Party were found unbearable by the British, on account of which Bose was in and out of jail repeatedly and fell ill many times. Bose was a great thinker as well as a man of vision and action. Subhash made an impact on the Congress that he was elected twice as the president of the Indian National Congress in 1938 and 1939 for the two sessions held at Haripura, Gujarat and Tripura. In his presidential address, he talked not only of freedom but also of reconstruction, the need for planning by setting up a planning commission, and of the gradual socialization of the entire agriculture and industrial system. He urged strongly that it was the right time to give an ultimatum to the British government for complete Swaraj. Britain was engaged in the World War, and so Gandhiji and Nehru were of the opinion that the Congress should not take advantage of Britain's difficulties, but both had strong views and advocated total freedom. He traveled throughout the country to organize public opinion against the war effort. So he was arrested on July 2, 1940 at Madras. On November 26, 1940, Bose went on hunger strike to protest against the ill treatment of prisoners. As his condition suddenly worsened, he was released but was kept under police surveillance. Bose escaped from the British and reached Kabul, and from there he went to Berlin via Moscow. The whole country was thrilled when his voice was heard over the Berlin radio. When Japan entered the World War, Subhash left for Japan. He went to Singapore and took over the leadership of the Indian independence movement. Subhash went to Southeast Asia and organized the Indian National Army, INA, to fight against the British. The Indian soldiers and civilians at once declared their allegiance to him and began to call him Netaji. He gave them the inspiring call of Jai Hind and Dilli Chalo. While launching the war, Netaji went on air on July 6, 1944 and sought Gandhiji's blessings in the following words: Father of our nation, in this holy war of India's liberation, we ask for your blessings and good wishes. The INA fought so well that it soon liberated about 3,200 square kilometers of Indian territory from the well-entrenched British army. But it was soon beset by various difficulties such as lack of communication and food, rigors of the monsoon, and breakdown in supplies. On the other hand, the Japanese forces were withdrawn, as the war went badly for them. But the INA refused to retreat, with the result that thousands of soldiers were captured by the British forces. They were disarmed and court-martialed. Jawaharlal Nehru himself organized and conducted their defense. Ultimately, the government released them. Netaji boarded a Japanese aircraft for Tokyo on August 18, 1945. The plane landed in Formosa at noon, and according to the Japanese sources, it caught fire while taking off. Netaji was badly burnt, but managed to come out of the plane. He was rushed to a hospital where he died the same night. It is amazing how much Subhash Chandra Bose was able to achieve and accomplish in his life of 48 years. He was a brilliant student and could have easily attained a high position of power as an ICS officer, but he preferred a life of trials and tribulations as a fighter for his country's freedom. His proud and independent spirit mocked at ill health and ill fortune. He was a doer as well as a thinker, and a fighter who never submitted to defeat. In life, he was a natural leader of men who inspired immense devotion and loyalty. In death, he became a legend. People refuse to believe that Netaji is dead. Perhaps they are right, for martyrs never die. Thank you.